This video is our very first task that we're going to be doing in SketchUp for schools. Other than potentially watching the introduction to the layout of the product, this would be the first task that we will do in class. It is to create a very simple cube using some of the main features of the product. So we will go through this moderately quickly, but I will show you each of the steps. With any of the videos, of course, feel free to pause and or rewind to rewatch a step to make sure you fully understand what you are doing. I will certainly explain things in a bit more detail than I would if I was just doing this task myself. And with a bit of practice, you should be able to do this much more quickly than the length of this video is going to be. So all up, this whole task of creating a cube will probably honestly only take 30 seconds to a minute. But of course, this video is going to be several minutes long as I explain each thing. So the first thing I will always do in any new design is to check my measurements, because there's nothing worse than getting partway through or even all the way through a design, spending a lot of time on it, and then realizing that your measurement unit is incorrect and potentially having to start from scratch. So the first thing I do once I open up my new document or my new design is I come over to the right to the second last option here, which is the model information. So circle with the I for information and click on that. From there, I'm going to come up the top to find this length units option. And I'm sure we're very familiar with anything with an arrow like this means it's going to drop out another menu. So let's do that. I want to make sure my format is millimeters. Quite often when you start, it might be on architectural or it could even be on something else. So make sure that we use millimeters because we use the metric system. And in fact, we use millimeters, not even centimeters. It needs to be millimeters for our class. I also want to have at least 1 decimal point of precision. That means I can do measurements down to a 1/10 of a millimeter. There's no need for any of our work to go higher. It just creates more complex looking numbers. So let's just stick with 1 decimal place of precision. We can leave everything else the way it is for now. You are welcome to look at any other options, but for now, just set your format and your precision as shown here. When you've done that, make sure you close it off just to get that space back. The next thing I always do is save my work. You should know from watching the introduction video that this is currently untitled, there is no name. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to save it to my OneDrive. That's the location that we have available. I'm going to come down to the name section. Of course, you could put it into a folder. You should have a product design folder, and I'm going to choose my name. Now, if you're in one of my classes, I do ask you to follow a naming convention. If you're not in my class, you might have to do a different naming convention or just come up with your own. But for my classes, I always expect files of any type to be your last name, then your first name, and then the piece of work that you're doing. So this is going to be a cube, and you put your last and then first name. So if I am doing this, I would do Tomic Nathan, because that's my name. So last name, then first name, and then the piece of work, in this case, cube. And I'm going to save that. Now I might already have one of those because I've done this project before. No, it has saved properly. And you can see up the top that it does in fact show the name, and also that it has recently been saved. So keep an eye on that saved option. If it doesn't say saved, it might be worth pressing that button again. And the final thing I always do before I start is basically get rid of this person here because I don't actually need them. So we're just going to select them and I'll just press delete on my keyboard. One thing that you do need to remember is there are often multiple ways to do any particular task. For example, the person I just had, when I select him, I chose to press delete on my keyboard because that's, in my opinion, the quickest way. But I could also right click and erase him as well. And there are also other ways I could go about that. So as you get more familiar with the program, you might find a way that you feel is more efficient or quicker to do a certain task. Feel free to do so. But what I'm doing here in these videos is just demonstrating a way that you can definitely do this. So let's start our first drawing. We're going to begin by coming to our left-hand tools and choosing the rectangle tool. When I click on that tool and I move my mouse out, you'll see that my cursor has changed to be a pencil with a rectangle, indicating that I'm going to draw a rectangle. The way the rectangle tool works is very simple. When you click and hold your left mouse button or click and hold your finger on your touchpad and then drag, you will draw a rectangular shape from one corner to the other. So let me demonstrate. Click and hold and drag, and you can see I'm going from one corner to the other. If you do get a square shape, you'll notice that we get a line through the dotted line indicating that that is a perfect square. It's called that golden section, and you might have heard of that in maths before. But what I want to do is, just to start with, I'm going to draw something that looks like it might be a square. Because what I'm going to be doing is drawing the bottom of my cube, and then I'm going to be bringing it up into a three-dimensional shape to be an actual cube. So let's draw that square. Or something that looks a bit squarish. So I don't want something that looks like that. That's not a square at all. I want something that kind of looks squarish. And I'm going to let go of my mouse or touchpad. Now this is very, very important. As soon as you let go, you'll see that that shape has been filled in. It's a full, solid, flat shape. Please do not click anywhere else. This is so, so important. So don't click anywhere on the screen. Don't touch another key on your keyboard yet, because this next step has to be done exactly in the right way. Because if we just direct our attention down to the bottom right, you'll see in our dimensions, we have the measurements. These measurements, 923 millimeters by 1671 millimeters, are the actual sizes of this shape I drew. And that's not what we want. Okay, I may not have said it earlier. I think I did forget to say it, but we're going to create a cube that is 100 millimeters cubed. So 100 millimeters in each direction. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to start by drawing our rough shape like I did, let go of our our mouse, and then we immediately type values in. And they're going to come down here into this box. But don't let go and then come and click down here. Just let go of your mouse and start typing. So I haven't pressed anything yet. I'm start typing. Notice down in that bottom right, the numbers are coming in there. I don't need to use my millimeter symbols because I already told the program earlier that I'm always using millimeters. But I do need to separate two measurements with a comma. So what I'm actually typing is 100, 100. And as soon as I press enter, watch what happens to that square or that shape I've got on my screen. It's shrunk down. It's gone to be the correct size, which is 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters. This is really important because we don't have any perspective right now. When we drew that, it was just a shape. We had nothing to compare it to, nothing to go, hey, that's really big or that's really small. But by putting actual measurements in, we can make sure that we're now drawing things the correct size so that they could be used as proper plans for something that you're going to build, or maybe sent off to someone else, or some machinery, for example, to interpret and create for you. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm just going to literally undo what I did, and I'm going to demonstrate one more time because this is such an important point. I take my tool, I draw a basic shape that's roughly the shape that I want. I let go of my mouse, do not touch anything else, and immediately start typing. So 100, 100, again, they're down in that bottom right corner, and when I press enter, there you go. It has shrunk down, or it might look like it expands if you're really zoomed in, to be the right size. So that now leads us to our next point. We need to get closer to this shape so we can see what we're doing. This is where, for me, a real mouse is useful because the scroll wheel lets you just put your cursor near it and scroll in towards it. I'm just pushing my scroll wheel forward, and of course I could zoom out by scrolling backwards on my mouse wheel. If you're using a touchpad, it's a little bit more tricky. If you have told it that you're using a trackpad, you can try pinching and zooming. I find it really, really difficult. So I think investing in a basic mouse is worthwhile. But you also have other options. If you don't have access to either of those things, a real mouse or a touchpad for some reason, you can come over to your three dots and you can choose one of your zooming options. So if I choose my zoom, then when I put my mouse here, I press and hold down on my left button, or again, press and hold your finger on your touchpad. And if you push up, it slowly zooms in. It's nowhere near as efficient as the proper or the zoom with a mouse. So I find this to be really, really time consuming. Another option you have, again, go to your 3-dot menu. You have another option called Zoom Extents. Now this is really useful when you've just got a small amount of things on the screen, because what this one will do when you click it is try to zoom in as far as it can, but making sure everything of your model fits in. I'm going to demonstrate how that works and also how it might not work. So if I do it now, the only thing I've got is this part that I drew. So clicking on that zooms me really close. Okay, and that might be good. I'm just going to zoom out a bit and also rotate a little bit. That's sort of what I'd like to see. But why that may not seem to work, let me go right back out again. Let's pretend for a moment I'd also drawn a line over here, just this little line, all right? When I try to zoom to extent, it's going to try to fit this and this in. So when I try to do that option, you can see it has zoomed in a bit, but it's zoomed in to fit that and the line that's up here at the moment. So it doesn't really go very far. So this is a tool, Zoom to Extents, that's best used when you've only got maybe the first thing that you've drawn. But again, scroll wheel is so much easier, because not only can you zoom in, but you can then press and hold your scroll wheel button to get the pan tool. So you can rotate up and down, round and round to get a good view. And being able to get a good view of what you're drawing from different angles can be the difference between being able to do this well and finding it very, very difficult. Because your perspective or the way you're looking at it can make a huge, huge difference. Again, if you don't have access to a scroll wheel, you still can come to your 3 dots and you can get those similar options. So in here you have, where has it gone? Sorry, no, it's not in the 3 dots, I apologize. It's actually up here. You can get the same tool, choose it, click and hold your normal button, and you can still do that. But again, it just makes it so much easier not having to change tool by having that scroll wheel. I can scroll in and out, I can change it, and I don't have to go and change any tools. Okay, hopefully that all makes some sense, and we now have a square, all right? We're now going to add our third dimension, because at the moment it is just a flat square. You can see it's literally a flat square, all right? So what I want to do now is use a new tool called Push and Pull. Here it is on the left-hand side. And this is what we use to take a shape and add the third dimension. So watch what happens as I move this cursor from the green over into my shape. So it's sort of grey at the moment, and as I go in, you'll see it gets that dotted area. That dotted area means this is the part that's going to be modified by this tool. This is the part that's going to be pushed and pulled. Okay, and that's going to be really important when we start adding or taking away parts from a model, but that won't be today. So with our tool on here, I'm going to click and hold my button, and I like to pull up a little bit. So I'm just going to pull my mouse up, and you can see, yep, it is making this into a 3D shape. Now, just like before, I'm going to go any amount. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit or a huge amount. It really makes no difference. I just want to move it in the direction that I want. I'm going to let go of my mouse button. Do not click anywhere. And just like before, I'm going to direct my attention down to the bottom left-hand corner. I'm moving my mouse only to point to it. I'm definitely not clicking. And you can currently see that I have moved my, my three-dimensional part 24 millimeters up. But I want it to be a cube, so therefore it needs to also be 100. So I'm going to again just start typing my value. There's only one value because there's only a single movement direction. It's not a square where you need a length and a width. So just 100. Press enter, and again it's going to adjust to be the correct measurement. So I now have a cube. Let's make sure that it really is a cube by looking at one more tool, actually maybe two tools that we can use. The first tool that we could use if we come over, it's the last one that stays there all the time, is the tape measure. If I use that tape measure, I can click on one point, be that a corner or somewhere along a line, click and then move to another point or somewhere along a line. And if I just leave my mouse sitting there, you'll see the measurement. And you can also see, if you look down to that bottom right-hand corner again, you can always see the live measurement of your tape measure. So if I go from corner to corner, I should always expect it to be 100 millimeters. So I can check that one, I can check this direction, yep, and I can also then check the vertical direction. So they're all 100. Another really useful tool though is to actually put dimensions on the screen, especially if these are going to be plans to use later on. So there's another tool, this time in our 3 dots, so let's get that, and it is called dimensions. It works a little bit the same. What I do is I click on a line, so this is the line that I want. I can click on it and then basically drag out, and it creates those sort of dotted lines that show a dimension. They're not part of the model, but you can see there is a dimension. So I could do that line. I might do this line out here. Whoops, I didn't get that correctly. Try that again. Make sure the line highlights, not just a point. So I could say that dimension there, and maybe I'll take this line. No, I don't need, I've already done the vertical. I need this line. Let's take that one out here. So this is showing me that that direction is 100, this direction is 100, and my vertical is also 100. So they're really good ways of proving, if you like, or showing someone who might look at this as a plan that your measurements are correct. It takes the actual measurement and puts it on the screen. So there we go. There is a very basic cube. I'm just going to undo those measurements though. We can obviously rotate around this and do all cool stuff to it. Make sure that you press that save button so you can see up the top it says save, because I haven't saved it recently. Because it has been previously saved, I can just hit that button. If you get this option to purge, in our cases, yes, we can always purge. There's nothing that is going to remove that's going to be a problem for you. If you are doing something super complex, like maybe designing a whole house, you may need to think about this a bit more. But let's just say yes to purging. It says saving, and now you can see it has been properly saved. So, as I said, this whole thing has taken the better part of 17 minutes so far. We've gone through a lot of things just to build a cube. One last thing I'm going to do is just redo the cube again, just to show you what I said at the beginning, that this task does not take 17 plus minutes. It's only taken that long because I've been explaining everything step by step. So really quickly, just for demonstration purposes, here is doing the exact same cube without all the explanation. So I'm coming out for about 17.5 minutes. So let's see how long it takes me. So I'm going to grab a rectangle. I'm going to draw a rough shape. I'm going to tell it to be 100, 100 for the size. Press enter. I'm going to get my push pull tool, bring it up, put 100 in, done. So that took me 19 seconds. And I think that was even a bit slow. So again, like I said at the beginning, once you become a bit proficient with this program, a bit familiar, these tasks do not take as long as they are probably taking you right now. But there you go, that's how you make the cube. That would be one of our first tasks in one of my classes, and you would be asked to have that saved and then be able to submit that later on, which you'll be shown how to do. Again, if you need to, go back and rewatch as much or as little of this video as you need, and then you can move on to the next task.